Well, welcome into another episode of Breakthrough Chronicles. And, you know, it's the great thing about having your own show is you get to choose the people that come on the program. And I have been looking forward to having our next guest now for quite some time. And without further ado, I want to welcome good friend, longtime colleague, and just an unbelievable human being here to Breakthrough Chronicles, Rex Chapman.
Buddy,
good to see you, brother.
Thanks for having me.
Well, thanks for sharing some of your time with us. I know it is that time of year for all of us, but
anything for you, buddy.
It's an exciting time of year.
Yes,
because you know this time of year rolls around and the adrenaline starts pumping a little bit harder. And I know for you, guy who played in the league for so many years, played at a high level, it's got to feel even different, right?
Feels great. My birthday is October 5th, so every year. My whole life. That's when basketball season starts. You know, October 15th is naturally the day college used to start.
Right.
And that was sort of high schools could gear up then. So this time of year always reminds me football, beginning of basketball, fall. It's just a magnificent time of year.
You know, I've had a chance to know you for, gosh, it's like
30
you know,
years,
we date ourselves when we say this, but for 30 plus years. And I think about all the incredible memories that we've had both together, the relationships that we've been able to forge. And it all really comes as a result of this thing.
Yeah, right.
This thing that has taken you all around the world and has opened doors. And it's funny, one of my other guests, Ann Myers-Drysdale, you might know her, Hall of Famer.
Sat with her yesterday.
You know, I asked her the question, and I'll pose it to you. As you sit there and you hold that, could you ever have imagined as a young boy the places that object would take you?
No, really, I can't. I know that from the youngest age, my mom found something, I guess, a piece of paper not long ago of me doodling as a 5-year-old and had learned how to spell and had misspelled, I want to be the greatest basketball player in the world. And I would carve stuff into things like I was just eaten up with basketball. And naively, I didn't realize that if you get good enough at it, it's not just the basketball you have to deal with. You got to deal with the media. You got to deal with people knowing who you are. And I think I was wired pretty well to play basketball, but maybe not wired so well to handle all of the other stuff that goes along with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and you know, I think for all of us, you know, we don't get to choose where we're born. Right. But once you are born, wherever that is, you know, the clock starts.
Yeah.
And in some ways, your life's GPS and roadmap begins to get carved out.
Mm-hmm.
You just happen to be born in one of the hotbeds of basketball. For many people, they believe it is the center of basketball. All apologies to those of you in North Carolina. But, you know, you were born there, Bowling Green, Kentucky, and, you know, you shared those memories. What were your first memories of the game of basketball?
Yeah, so I grew up, and my dad played. He played he went to Kentucky, and his dad got Lou Gehrig's disease before it was called that. So he moved back home, transferred to Western Kentucky, had a terrific career there, and then played in the ABA. So my first memories were of, I vaguely remember ABA games.
Right.
He played for the Pacers. And then my earliest memories are of being like in grade school and just couldn't wait till school ended to get the bus down the street to Apollo High School where he coached so I could watch his practices. And he had I would have been little, 8, 9, 10, and he had a point guard named Jeff Jones who played at Apollo, who was Ralph Sampson's point guard at Virginia, would go on to be Ralph Sampson's point guard, 6'5" point guard. My dad talked about this freshman he has every day, freshman, sophomore, Jeff Jones. He's going to be a terrific player. The guys on that team, Jeff Jones, Steve Barker, Doug Jones, all those guys, they were my heroes. And I idolized them. They were my professional athletes. They were high schoolers. I remember one day coming out of we had a big third grade championship game at my school. And I got there and my dad had brought the team over there. I went out for the jump ball, threw up at midcourt. They mopped it up.
Stopped the game,
cleaned it up. I jump ball and I was fine. Great. Played the game. We won. Fast forward, my dad made himself throw up before every game. Every game I ever saw him coach.
After this, or so
this was before this.
Okay.
And over time, I did the same. And it started about in high school. It was nerves. Once I threw up, I felt great.
Right.
I did that all through high school, all through college, 2 years of college. I got into the NBA, and that's throwing up 82 times a year. And I was still doing it. And in fact, if I didn't do it, I would play shitty. And our trainer would come to us and be like, you need to go throw up, man. I finally got out of it over the years. Occasionally I would, though, throughout my career. Just silly nerves, habit, whatever it is. But that's my earliest memory. And those memories of following my dad around everywhere, just watching what he did, how he talked to his players, realizing how hard it was. I think I also did some things, probably as a 5-year-old, seeing guys dribble behind their back, working on it. So I knew how to do it before I knew it was hard. I had a little bit of an advantage being around basketball every day, all day.
Right. It's funny, though, to hear you talk about that, how those two things, mm-hmm. the visual and auditory impressions made upon you,
right.
Clearly before third grade, but it was your first time.
Mm-hmm.
You clearly felt this kind of external presence.
Yeah.
With the eyes of your father and the team, the guys that you were hoping to emulate.
Right.
And how that would then carry over, and then the whole throwing up.
Yeah.
And years later, and we'll talk more about this, how that impacted your life.
No question.
Off the court.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So was it always basketball? There was never any other sport
I played
you even considered?
I played all the sports. In fact, I grew up, my first sport was swimming. I swam competitively from about age 5 to 10, 11, and I loved it. And I was pretty good at it. It's still what I do today for exercise for the most part. It feels like doesn't feel like I'm working out too much.
Right.
But yeah, so I started competitive, and that really stoked my competitive fire. Like, I hated to lose. I cried when I lost. It was it was good for me because they needed me to do something. I was bouncing off the walls, just right. I was constantly gone, playing, doing something. But I played baseball, football, and basketball. Just jumped from whatever season to whatever season. There was no internet. There was nothing to do. You remember that life, K-Ray?
Wow.
And so
I do remember. That life.
It was nice.
It was.
And so I played football, but I was a late bloomer. I got to be around 7th grade, and I stopped playing football. I stopped swimming because baseball was, my friends were starting to play Little League baseball, and the baseball diamond was near the swimming pool, and my friends started giving me shit for wearing the Speedo. They would go by, and I couldn't stand it, and I came home in tears one day. I was probably 7 or 8. My mom was like, "What's wrong, honey?" It was from swim practice. And I was just beside myself. The older girls, the high school girls, were calling me Sexy Rexy. And I just hated it. And I was crying. She was like, no, they're they like you. And I wasn't buying it. That combined with my friends making fun of me, I stopped swimming and went and played baseball. So I kind of got shamed into playing baseball.
Sure.
I liked it. It was fine. I pitched and played short, and I couldn't hit. Was scared of the ball. Around 7th, 8th grade, though, I told my dad, I said, I think I just want to play basketball. And I was like 5'6", 5'7". He was like, are you sure? I said, yep. But I realized after playing it my last year of football that I was tough enough for basketball.
Right.
Yeah. Football is fine.
It's a different kind of physicality.
Hitting. I liked hitting. I didn't like getting hit.
Right.
And so, but in basketball, you can fight anybody for 3 seconds till the refs break you up. So yeah, but I played every sport. I'm a sports nut, one thing to the next. And that was kind of nice too. You wouldn't play basketball for like 4 months and you'd come back and you were like 2 or 3 inches taller and it seemed easier. Like you got better by osmosis.
Right. When did that growth spurt come in your life?
It didn't happen until I was, so my freshman, I always played up. I was good enough to play up, but physically I was behind it. As a freshman in high school, I had my 2 best friends were also freshmen. All 3 of us made the varsity team. My 2 buddies, Greg Bond and Jeff Sanford, still my best buddies. They started every game of high school, 4 years. They didn't play JV. They didn't play freshman.
Wow.
I came off the bench on the varsity team as a freshman. I played in every game. Probably averaged 10 points or so, but I played every junior varsity game and every freshman game too. And so some days I was 3 games.
You were hoops around the clock.
Yeah, my dad was like, "Yeah, it's great you made the varsity team, but you need to play.
Right.
You can't just play on the varsity and get 15 minutes here or there. Go down, play in your grade level, get some confidence because you're going to get your ass kicked at the with the varsity guys." I was about 5'7" as a freshman, and over that summer, 3 months, I was like 6'3". And so my athleticism started, my body was bad, my knees were bad, my back was bad.
Right.
I missed some games as a sophomore, but, I jumped center, and I was, my athleticism started coming together, and I think I got a dunk for the first time probably my sophomore year, and then I was off to the races.
Took off after that.
Yeah.
When did you feel maybe a difference with your father because of his background? When did you feel the difference of him, like maybe recognizing the talent you have and going from being, I'm sure there was always the role of father coach, but when did you feel that like he recognizes a talent in me and then it became a real pushing to like pull the very best out of you?
That's a hard question. My dad, he was coaching his own team. By the time I got in high school, he was coaching Kentucky Wesleyan College, the local D2 school. They had multiple national championships, really good players that came through there. And if my dad would have offered me a scholarship, like when I was a freshman or sophomore, I'd have gone to Wesleyan. Like that was, all I wanted was a scholarship somewhere, so my parents didn't have to pay for school.
Right.
I'd hear them at night as a little kid, college is expensive and whatever, talking to one another. So that was my only goal. Lost my train of thought. What was the question?
Just asking
about
my
dad. So he was gone a lot. He actually didn't. I bet he didn't see me play 10 high school games because his games coincided.
Conflicting. Right.
Yeah. If I played well, I would get a way to go, hot shot, something like that. If I played poorly, or if I didn't give effort, which was a common theme for him,
right?
You're playing too easy. What are you only pick your spots when you play hard. And I did. I didn't know how hard I needed. I was doing fine. I was getting 30 a night and all that. But I'll never forget, I was a junior in high school, and looking back, I was probably the best player in the state. at the time. I didn't know that then. But we played at Butler County, and we were supposed to win by like 30. My dad went to the game, and I probably had 40, 17, 18 rebounds, 10 or 11 blocks. You know, it was a game where, you know, I got on the bus afterwards, and I was like, he's going to have to love me up tonight. Like, you know.
Right.
And so I got home, and I walked in, and he's smoking a cigarette, drinking a Coke, eating a sandwich my mom certainly fixed for him. And I walk in, he's watching the news, open the door, crickets, nothing. I walked behind him into my mom and said, Mom, what's up with him? You know, what's going on? She went, I don't know. I went back in, sat in his line of vision on the couch. He's watching the TV. And I said, finally, I said, what'd you think? He said, oh, you want to know what I think? And he got up and said, stand up. I want to know when you're going to take a fucking charge. You ever going to take a charge? And he said, here's how you do it. He started running to my mom comes in and says, break it up, break it up, break it up. I went upstairs. She comes up about 30 minutes later and says, puts her arm around me and says, honey, I said, get away from me. If he doesn't tell me, how am I going to know? And I took up for him.
Wow.
So it was, you know, I think he recognized probably in high school, mid sophomore, junior year that, you know, I had the ability, but he definitely was not going to let me. He had me perfectly wired for when I left college. When I left, he said, I hope they don't redshirt you this year. And I really believe that. I was going to play with and against and practice James Blackman, Ed Davin, Richard Madison. These are Winston Bennett, a team stacked with McDonald's All-Americans.
Right.
I was going in as a 165-pound freshman.
Wow.
And so it just so happened once I got there, I knew how to play. And that was, you know, that really got me through because physically I wasn't strong enough.
Sure.
But I knew how to play, you know, making a post feed, cutting base, just that type of stuff. So that really carried the day once I got to school.
Well, and you came with all those credentials. I mean, you know, Mr. Basketball, Kentucky. Yeah. I mean, Kentucky, Gatorade Player of the Year, All-American. But it's interesting to hear you talk about that moment with your father and how, you know, that dichotomy of you want him to be your father, to acknowledge and show you love and admiration, but yet you, like you say, you defend him because you so badly want his approval on the basketball court.
Correct. Yeah. And it got to, there were times in high school, you know, also I'm growing up, I'm, you know, becoming, you know, the other thing I'm becoming,
you're going through,
I'm becoming known in our state, which was, I was very ill prepared for that. So he you know, he did his best. Yeah. You want your dad to put his arm around you and love you up publicly, all that.
Right.
He's just not that kind of guy.
Right.
It's just, you know, it's a different generation. But I got to tell you, he did. I wouldn't trade it because he did. He, you know, I think it was probably a hard job trying to keep me here.
Right. Well, and look, you know, I think we all can look back at our parents. You know, I have discussions with my mom nowadays, and she will apologize about things. Gosh, we should have done this for you. You did what you knew at that time.
Yeah, they did their best. They had one roadmap, and that was their parents.
Right.
We're trying to do a little bit better each generation, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So you talked about being recognized, which is great, you know, that you're getting that adulation publicly.
Yeah.
But again, you're only prepared for what you know and what the people around you know. How did you go about dealing with that? Were there release valves? Were there friends? Were there people that you were sharing some of those?
Yeah, I had a close group of friends. In fact, two of my friends, when I decided to go to Kentucky, I committed to Louisville. I was a lifelong Louisville fan. I hated Kentucky growing up, UK. I don't know why. Probably because everyone else liked UK.
Right.
And so, but I loved Denny, so I spurned them at the very last moment and went to Kentucky. What was the question?
No, just talking about how you coped
Oh yeah.
with that kind of attention as a
So when
16, 17-year-old.
part of me going to Kentucky, they said you can bring your boys. I had twins that played with me whole life growing up, football, baseball, Kevin and Keith Vanderpool. They said, you want them to come live in the lodge? I was like, yep, in Wildcat Lodge. So they came and lived in Wildcat Lodge downstairs. I had friends around. My grandmother lived in Lexington, which was one of the main reasons I went there.
Sure.
I could escape and get over to her place, take some teammates over to her house. She'd cook and all that stuff. So that was good. I had some support, but it was also, I'm 18, 19 and think I know everything, right?
Yeah, what 18,
I think all this
19-year-old
is
doesn't.
great. I don't look at it as stress or pressure or anything because I could handle the basketball stuff.
Right.
It was the off-court stuff, the being known, for instance, like high school, I was like 16 and, 15 or 16 and girls, all this is starting to, and I'm getting, I'm becoming more known. I'm at our mall with our buddies in our little town of Owensboro, Kentucky. We're walking through the mall like that's what you did back in the day.
Right.
We got to ride to the mall, or maybe we drove to the mall. Yeah, see what's going on around here. And a group of girls and guys from our rival high school across town, Davis County, they're coming this way. And
now, are you wearing the letter jacket when you?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
But I could have been.
Right.
We all could have been. They look like the Thunderbirds or whatever from Greece.
Right.
So we're in the mall, and a couple girls come over and ask me for my autograph, and I sign it. I just signed my name. I don't even know if I didn't even have an autograph at that point. And they go, okay, thanks. They walk back over their people and they hand it to a couple guys over there and they go, yo, ripped it up. And they cheered. And my friends thought it was hilarious.
Right.
I also had to laugh because it was pretty funny. But on some level, I was completely blindsided. I really bought that I thought it was weird.
Right.
But I was just naive. I didn't know. None of us knew. So those things were really difficult to deal with because I really never knew who liked me and who didn't like me.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, outside of maybe signing your homework, how many?
Yeah.
you hadn't signed too many other things before in your life.
Actually,
right?
Other people should have been signing my homework.
So you get to Kentucky and take us through those early experiences because it's Kentucky.
Yeah.
And you're Mr. Basketball, you're all this, but now you're stepping onto a whole nother level. Were you overwhelmed or did you feel prepared because of the guys that you had gone up against and were confident enough in your game?
I had as much confidence as I could have because I do feel like nobody had worked any harder than I had. I made a commitment like when I was 9 that I'm going to play basketball every day that I can play basketball. And if we weren't on a vacation, I was carrying a ball around with me,
right?
Wherever I went, to the beach, to anywhere, and just in case a game popped up.
Sure.
And so I just loved it like that. And I knew nobody had worked any harder. I knew I was up against it physically my freshman year. I didn't know that I guess I didn't know that I could really score like that. I could score. You could put me on the court and I could score. If you need me to get 15, I get 50. If you need me to get 30, I'll get them.
Right.
But you might not like it.
Right.
But
I will get you 30.
I'll get you 30, and that might be 40, and you might like that. But I can score. I really didn't know that I was that much able, that gifted, I guess, as a scorer.
Right.
But the part that really helped me was I could pass and I could dribble and I could get it off the board and I could go, and I was a decent decision maker at that level. And so once we started playing, I started from my first game. I think my first game in a Kentucky uniform, I came off the bench. We had an exhibition game against the former Yugoslavia, and they had Drazen was 3 years older than I was. They had Drazen Petrovic.
Oh, wow.
They had Tony Kukoc, a young Tony. They had Vlade Divac, and they had Dino Raja. And they beat us by 2.
By 2.
But that was my first game. I think Drazen got like 30. I had like 18 off the bench. He was a grown man to me at the time. Like I couldn't do anything with him. I was 18, he's 22.
Right.
And he manhandled me. But that, I knew international play a little bit, and these were grown-ups to me.
Right.
So once I did that, I was able to compete with those guys. I was gaining my confidence more and more. And, and we really didn't have that year a go-to guy. So I was kind of having to carry the load offensively, which was pretty hard because I didn't want to be shooting that much on a team laden with juniors and seniors.
Right.
So, but they were great. My teammates at Kentucky put their arms around me and loved me. Like, I mean, really, I think that's what kept me sane at Kentucky.
I was just going to say, that kind of connectivity as a freshman, you probably can't quantify what that meant to you on a personal level.
On a personal level, yeah. I was first day of practice, and my coach, I've said this publicly, so this isn't news. My coach, Eddie Sutton, he had a drinking problem he had a long drinking problem, but my freshman year, he was really out there. And he dried out over the summer, went to Betty Ford, came back. He was terrific my sophomore year. But that stuff was hard and hard to negotiate. He was inconsistent that year, but my teammates were just amazing. But on the first day of practice, the very first day of my freshman year, I'd struggled through conditioning. I couldn't lift. Me and my roommate Reggie Hansen, we could only lift the bar 45 pounds. And you talk about humiliating, and that was in the day where we're lifting there with the football players too.
Oh, wow.
So I struggled through physically. I was just fortunate that I was able to do it basketball wise.
Yeah.
SEC. First day of practice, Eddie Sutton said he stops practice. It's like a 3-on-2, 2-on-1. I'm coming back 2-on-1. I drove, passed it. The guy laid it in. He stopped practice. Said, "That's why he's the best player in here." And I turned around looking like, who's he talking about? And he was talking about me, and I wanted to run and hide. That's the last thing I wanted anybody to say in front of my teammates.
Right.
On day one,
yeah.
I thought, well, these guys are going to fucking hate me now. They didn't.
They didn't.
They did not. They just loved me more. I loved playing with those guys.
That, as you know, I mean, a very unique situation because clearly they knew with the recruiting process. Mm-hmm. So there could have
local home Kentucky kid, all of that stuff.
Yeah. There could have easily been a wedge even before you stepped on the campus.
No question. I think that, well, really the only thing that carried the day was they saw that I could do it.
Right.
That I wasn't, I think they saw that I wasn't just a good player from Kentucky.
Right.
Who had,
sure, because there's lots of,
teams.
They've seen lots of those headlines before. Right. Lots of really good basketball players in Kentucky. Highest point, best point at Kentucky, lowest point.
Ooh, man. Highest point. That's tough. I mean, we
guys had a lot of
really good my sophomore year. It was really us and U of A. They had Sean Elliott and Steve Kerr, Tom Tolbert, Kenny Lofton. They had a squad down there. And I thought we were the two best teams in the country that year. They got beat Sweet 16. I think we did. The year Danny Manning and those guys won it.
Right.
But we won the SEC outright. I think we lost one game in the SEC. We won the SEC tournament. We were number 2 seed. That was all magnificent. I okay. So my girlfriend from the time I was like 17 from my hometown, and we're still really good friends. She's from my hometown. Her older brother, one of my best friends, he was the best player on our football team at UK. Mark Higgs is his name. And their family, very athletic family in Owensboro, Kentucky. Kenny Higgs, her older brother, played in the NBA, in Denver, played at LSU. Mark played, her sisters all played. Sean, my girlfriend, was the state 200 or 100 champion 2 years in a row in high school. We were the same grade. Well, and Sean's black, and black family. We just knew each other from the time we were little. Just grew to love one another and had a great time. People didn't dig it. Got to Kentucky, and everything was supposed to be okay, where we were supposed to be able to be boyfriend and girlfriend and go out and do things. And I got to campus, and right away
was not the case.
They didn't like it. And so those 2 years, because of that, were difficult. I also think that's a reason that my teammates rallied around me too, because they know Mark, they knew Sean, and that was difficult to deal with because it was like this secret that they were keeping. I wasn't keeping it from, well, why are you keeping this secret? Right. So that was a really tough time, and it was really confusing. And I think it's something that I really struggled with and never dealt with. And it came back to bite me later on. Yeah.
Well, I was going to say at that time, mid to late 80s, mental health was something that was viewed as a stigma. Like, bro, let's not talk about that.
I started sleeping a lot in college because I couldn't, I was underage. I didn't drink, but I liked going with my buddies to the bars and watch them drink and talk to girls and do all that stuff. And I would get to all our teammates, underage or not, could get into bars. And I would go and they'd say, Rex, if we let you in here, somebody's going to call the cops and they're going to shut us down. So I had my own key to the arena or Coliseum. I could go back and shoot. I could go back. I could go and go out with my girlfriend, but we weren't probably going to go out anywhere. I could go out with other girls, which I did as a bad boyfriend. So it was just it was a really confusing time, where by and large, from the outside looking in, people would think, oh man, he's got the world by the tail. I started sleeping a lot, thinking I was just tired. Looking back, I was definitely depressed. And things could not have been going better on the basketball court. And I woke up one day and had what I now know, I've had like 2 in my life, was a panic attack. And I couldn't put together what was going on. I just woke my roommate up, said, Reg, I think I need to go to the hospital. I don't feel right. I couldn't move. I think what happened was I had a thought of, I've got the world by the tail here. People think I do, but I'm unhappy.
Right. Almost paralyzed within your own body.
I'm unhappy, and this is not going to get better. And Reggie called the coaches, and Dwayne was there, and Dwayne was my guy. And I probably wouldn't have gone to Kentucky if it weren't for Dwayne, because he had recruited me at Western too, and he just took the job when Leonard Hamilton left. So Dwayne came and got me, he and another assistant, and they probably should have taken me to the hospital. They took me to Booster's house, who I know, very good man, and they went and picked up Sean, and they took Sean and I out there, and we stayed out on at his house for a couple days. And I just sort of came out of it, missed a couple days of practice, went back, played. I never even thought about that again until 2 years ago. I didn't remember it, nothing.
Really?
Didn't remember it. I went back and, I think it was probably embarrassing, but because I didn't tell anybody.
Right.
Nobody. This was not social media. They didn't want anybody to know this.
Right.
You know?
Right.
They were actually protecting themselves. I should have been at the hospital. So I was going through things there, but I don't think I really realized I was.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
then I make the USA team as a freshman, and now I'm playing that summer with Danny Manning and David Robinson, and I'm starting to realize that, okay, well, I started,
pretty good.
I averaged, I don't know, 13 or 14. And so what I knew was now I'm at least, these guys are going to play in the NBA next year. There's no doubt. Danny's going to be a number 1 pick. David was just the number 1 pick. 10 guys are going to go play in the NBA. I'm starting on the team. I may be able to play in the NBA someday. There was no thought of leaving early. None.
Completely registered.
Yeah. People didn't do that.
Right.
Danny Manning staying in school 4 years. Michael Jordan stayed in school 3 years.
Right.
You stay in school. Isaiah Thomas comes out. Magic Johnson comes out. Those kind of guys come out.
Right.
I ended up, I wasn't having a great time at playing for Eddie during that time. And just at the end of the day, after my sophomore year, it was
that as big a factor as just being able to see yourself performing on the stage with those guys?
That I wanted to stay. I didn't think I was really ready to leave, more so emotionally and socially than anything else. I was just, I was a kid. And so I wanted to stay in school, and really I was so at odds with Eddie at the time. Also, Denny Crum was the USA coach. I had spurned him. I got like 28 or something against them earlier in the year, and we blew them out of their own building my freshman year. A few months later, Denny, who I had committed to, spurned. He picked me for the USA team, plays me all the minutes. I remember a conscious thought when I was thinking about going in the draft. Maybe I don't go in the draft. Maybe I transfer. But this is when you had to sit out for a year.
Right.
But the only school I would even think about transferring to would have been Louisville.
Yeah.
How do you think that would have gone over?
Yeah, if you think you were dealing with problems,
in Kentucky ever again.
Right.
So I left. Yeah.
Well, as it turns out, worked out pretty good for you. June 28th, 1988, draft day.
Yeah.
Had to be one of the, best days of your life. NBA had decided for expansion, so Charlotte, Miami on the board. Did you know Charlotte was going to pick you? Okay.
Again, Eddie didn't do me any favors during that process.
Once he found out you were leaving.
They begged me to stay. They enticed me to stay. And once they did that, I was like, no, this is dumb. And so I was projected to go third, fourth, fifth. Danny Manning, Rick Smits, and the Clippers, the Sixers, the Warriors needed 2 guards. And I had just played on the USA team. David Falk, my agent, said, listen, if you don't go to the Olympic trials, you'll be third. They'll take you third. I said, I'm going to play in the Olympics. And so I went. I got undercut early on and had a hip pointer the entire time. Mm-hmm. Still, John Thompson and his staff kept Sean Elliott and I, and we were both banged up, and we were the last 2 cuts. And that really hurt. It was the first time in my life, like, hey, what? Combine that with Eddie's, I think, his intel that he gave to, the teams at the top.
Right.
I slid. And I didn't really know. I didn't care. I mean, sure, I'd like to go as high as whatever. But once 3 came, well, the Clips changed. Now it was going to be the Clips traded with the Sixers. They flopped 3 and 6. So now teams that needed 2 guard are the Clips took Charles Smith 3rd, and Hersey Hawkins was on the board. Mitch Richmond's on the board, 5th to Golden State. It's the right call. I had never even heard of Mitch. Had never heard of him ever.
Wow.
Hersey I had heard of. Hersey went 6th to Philly, and that one kind of got me because I really wanted to go to Philly because I loved Charles. Grew up watching Doc.
Yeah.
All those teams. Charles had come out and said he wanted me. He didn't even know me, which I was like, then when they didn't take me, I was like, shit. Phoenix had the next pick, and they drafted Tim Perry. And so these are all the teams I had visited and talked to.
Right.
So that also tells you how I probably didn't kill the interview process as the question was, is he going to be able to help us for the next 2 years?
Right.
In the next 2 years. Right. And, answer was probably, I probably could have, but at that time,
the way that they needed
on a veteran team. And am I going to be able to take coming off the bench and doing all that stuff? Next thing I know, Charlotte's up. I didn't even visit Charlotte. Didn't visit Miami. David says you're going to Charlotte. I went, all right, great. Also, I'm not even sure I knew Charlotte was in the draft.
Right.
Like, what is this? And they're a new team. I was drafted by Charlotte, and at that point, I was really just sort of relieved. You're sitting there and
I got picked.
Wait, what's going on? Is anybody going to pick me? So then I'm picked. I go to Charlotte, and that next day, I get there, and at my press conference, Del Curry, Sonia, and baby Stefan. It was my first time meeting Stefan. We ended up being next door, 2 doors down. Stefan's my first little buddy in the league. Del's one of my best friends to this day. Muggsy, Del, and I used to ride together. We lived in the same apartment complex. We rode together everywhere. Stefan in the back seat with me a lot of times because seniority, I had to be in the back seat while Muggsy's up front. And the whole time, the little baby in the car seat's better than all of us. We think we're big shit playing in the NBA, and we got a baby with a pacifier in his mouth just getting ready to light it up. He was just sitting there laughing at us. Yeah. So it was a really, Muggsy and Del, 2 of my best friends to this day.
Right.
And it was really a blessing because those guys, Del taught me how to tie a tie. They taught me everything. I remember coming in after my first practice, and it was payday, and it was my first check, direct deposit, but it's our stub.
Yeah,
and I get it, and I was making, I think as the 8th pick, $675 a year, and I got my first check for $50,000, and I remember looking at the stub, and it's taken out for this. I'm seeing taxes. It was like 34 net. And I remember I looked at Del and Muggsy and I said, hey, I've heard about the tax returns. When do we get this back? And they went, what? And I said, I've heard about the tax returns. When do we get that back each year? And they went, we don't get that back, moron. Are you this dumb? Yes, I was. Yes, I am.
I am a naive young man.
Yep.
But it's so funny that you say that,
Mhm.
and here we are in 2023, and I feel like there are lots of professional athletes and kids, probably the NIL crew nowadays that are
a great opportunity,
experiencing the exact same thing.
I'm actually, there's going to be some positives and negatives to the NIL. I'm for it by and large, but it has to start teaching fiscal responsibility at an earlier age. You have to start. Look, if you're getting paid by the local tire store in high school, which you can be now,
right?
You got to pay taxes on that. You got it. So you're going to have to learn a little bit. And that's a good thing. They should have had all of us taking business courses, taking finance courses, if we could get in, to the finance, if we could handle the finance courses. But yeah, I think, we were in an era where they're just pushing you through, and
Well, look, it's my biggest rant about the
Yeah,
education system that hasn't changed in,
Mhm.
archaic teachings of 100+ years.
Yeah.
And I mean, like I say, you got high school kids, 2023, getting ready to graduate who have no clue as taxes as you did
Yeah.
30+ years
Yep.
ago.
Yep.
So when did you? So you're
Mhm.
surrounded by these pros.
Tim
Pros.
Kempton's there, my rookie year. Tim's my vet.
Right.
Kelly Trapuka, Kurt Rambis, Ricky Green. I mean, these guys. Kurt had a son that was almost my age, so I was in deep
You're
water.
truly the pup.
And they were, most of these people, Dell, Muggs. 10 of our guys were married with kids. The only person that wasn't married was Tom Tolbert. He was a fellow rookie, but Tom was a couple years older.
Right.
And we kind of did everything. When those guys had family time, Tom and I hung out together. So that was good. I had a pretty good support system in Charlotte, better than I did at Kentucky.
Right. And blessings in the sense that Charlotte made the decision as an expansion team to go get vets.
They did.
To try to win quicker.
Yeah, than Miami did.
Yeah,
right. And
Miami
by the way, we
movement.
won 21 games that year. They only won like 15. So
right.
Yeah.
really
we blew them out of the water. And for real, like that was our championship game every year for like 2 or 3 years.
Right.
The Miami Heat.
When did you, and especially having those particular vets around you, when did you all kind of have that aha moment organizationally with Charlotte? Like, wow, and maybe in looking at other pro teams, the way they were being run. When did that kind of resonate with you?
Like what? Like in what?
Well,
in
just
what way?
in terms of how they cared for players, maybe things that in terms of travel, the amenities that your locker room had or didn't have.
Yeah. So we didn't have a practice facility, but this was the 80s, and few teams did. Right around that time, the money was changing. For instance, I was the 8th pick in '88 and made $675. 2 years later, the 8th pick made $1.5 million. So it had doubled, even more than doubled,
right,
in 2 years. So now the TV money, and right about that time, the Pistons got their own plane, and everybody went, "You can do that?
Right?
They have that much money?" And so for years, Charlotte, we chartered commercial planes. Everybody had 4 rows to themselves. It was just, but you could also tell the teams that really invested in their players.
Right.
I started hearing, well, they don't do it that way in Salt Lake City. They don't do it they didn't do this. So you start to learn there are sort of haves and have-nots, and we were sort of a have-not. We didn't have a lot of money. I think Matt Ishbia bought the Suns team for $4 billion not long ago. George Shinn and Miami's owner, Mickey Harrison, they bought in 1988, new franchise, $32 million. Wow.
Pretty good return on investment for Mickey these days.
My God.
Now you got players making $32 million a year.
Easy. Some of them not even great players.
And he can say that because he played in the league. Well, so you get into this NBA world. You have some success.
Yeah.
When did the first injuries happen with you? And that would begin kind of a different kind of catalyst for you in your life.
I just couldn't stay healthy. And I think, looking back, I do think a lot of it was I didn't sleep very well. I'd never slept more than 3 or 4 hours a night straight. And then I'd get up, and then my mind was always racing. Once sleep aids came in later on, I fared better. But still, it was Ambien, and you can take too much Ambien. And, so I didn't sleep real well. I think I was stressed a lot, not really knowing why.
Right.
And that stuff probably led to me being hurt, being more predisposed to injury. I had gotten undercut in college once and broken a bone in my back and missed a game. It was a non-weight bearing bone, but my rookie year I got into camp and I guess I hadn't really rehabbed that well enough and missed like 5 games early on my rookie year, which was probably good because I was kind of bad. I didn't know what I was doing, athletic, but
Right.
couldn't really play. Playing on a bad team, playing more minutes than probably I should have been playing. But by a month, 6 weeks, 2 months, and I had the hang of it. We were getting beat a lot.
Right.
But I was getting good reps. I was getting better. I was starting to, I'm playing against Rolando Blackman and guys that are 10 years older, 12 years older. But I'm, the second time I'm seeing these guys, I'm getting more confidence. I'd go play the Pistons and guys like Joe Dumars and Isaiah Thomas and Rick Mahorn are weirdly putting their arms around me. Like, you're going to be, you're
going to be okay,
you're
kid.
going to be all right.
Yeah.
And I got that everywhere I went around the league. Everybody did that with me. And I don't really know why, because I was just, I just played at Kentucky. I came through, and for whatever reason, guys really loved me up, and I needed it. Maybe they saw I needed it.
Right. Well, and like high school and then college, your teammates there, oddly enough, because I have to imagine that the first time in your life you're experiencing success, but it's not translating to wins.
It's not translating into wins, but also it's the first time I'm starting to see, like, I'm a top 3 player in high school. I'm a top 5 or 10 player in college. But 2-3 years in, I'm seeing guys who weren't that. Kevin Johnson, Mark Price, later on, Steve Nash. These guys who, my trajectory, I personally, and these guys are doing it. And so now I'm like, all right, well, you got to go to work. You got to find your niche, find your groove, and learning to accept that I wasn't that.
Right.
I knew I could be that. I could never stay healthy enough. I don't think I ever played like 100 games in a row.
Right.
I'd get 60. I'd miss 30. And it's rehab. It's come back. I'm rusty. I just couldn't sustain health.
When was the first time in dealing with an injury that you had that conversation with a doctor and the first prescription came?
So I was pretty fortunate to not have many major injuries. I did have an ankle that I dislocated in a game, out of the skin, out of the tape, cut the shoe off, all of that. And that, I still have issues with that. But I started I had broken wrists, fingers, shin. My last 3 years of playing, I had 7 surgeries. And so I was very, I didn't drink. I wasn't a drinker, wasn't a smoker, not a drug guy. And I'd had pain medicine before, but it had been post, acute injury. And I didn't like it. I didn't like it mainly because I wanted to get back and play as quick as I could.
Sure.
And if I don't know exactly how that's feeling, there's no chance. I need to know. So I would get rid of the pain medicine. Fast forward, my last year playing. So it's my 12th year, and I really haven't been good. I had dislocated my thumb in preseason. I'd torn the tendons. I was going to have to get it fused at the end of the year. I kind of felt like this could be my last year. I was still under contract for 3 or 4 more years, though. And Jerry and those guys knew that I was kind of breaking down a little bit. But we're on a road trip to Vancouver, and play in Vancouver, fly to Golden State the next night. We're at our hotel in San Francisco, and my stomach starts hurting. And I go to Prosky, our trainer, and Prosk says, you might have an appendicitis. Let's get you to the hospital. So I go to the hospital. They said, yep, it's about to rupture. Let's get you in there. They got me in, got appendicitis. Team played the game. I met them at the plane. I flew back to Phoenix. I got off the plane, and a doctor gave me a prescription for OxyContin and said, here, it's brand new. Take this. You're fine. You'll be great. I took it. I wasn't going to be able to play the rest of the season. This was right at the end of the season. So unless I'd have come back for the second round of the playoffs, and we were probably getting beat by the Lakers in the first round,
right?
Which we did. And so I wasn't going to play anymore. I took that medication, and in 24 to 48 hours, I knew it was the best thing I'd ever had in my life. I loved it. I loved it. I felt like it made me smarter, funnier, better dad, better husband.
Yeah, because mind you, you're married and
4 kids.
4 kids at the time.
And my ex-wife is fantastic. She's amazing. But she was living with a crazy person, you know. And so I lost all interest in anything else, you know, really. Golf, friends. Before long, all I wanted was that medicine.
Just that feeling.
Yeah. And, you know, the OxyContin's a time release thing, and all the depression, all the bad thoughts and all that. The way I describe it, it's kind of it'll be all right drug. They're fleeting thoughts. All the good ones seem to hang around a little longer. You're high.
Yeah.
It's synthetic morphine. And it
you're able to take those and put them over here, and
while slowly your life's deteriorating, all your decisions. Danny Ainge came to me about a year and a half after I had decided to quit playing. I was living here, and he came to me and said, Rex, you're really messing up. You're messing up your family, your life, everything. And Danny's somebody I really respect.
Right.
And when he said that, he said, you need to go to rehab. And I at this point, I'm fresh out. I've never drank. I've never been in trouble. I've nothing. I'm not a drug addict.
Yeah,
that's what I'm telling you.
Rehab is only
for addicts.
Right.
I reluctantly went, and I needed to, because I needed to get off that OxyContin. And I went there, and I did get off the OxyContin, and I never got back on the OxyContin, but I did get back on the Vicodin. 6 months later, I had a pit in my stomach after a year and a half. Also, when I went, I was taking like 40 Vicodin a day and about 10 OxyContin a day. And it would just kill you if I did that now. I'd just die right here. But I built my tolerance up. It's a wonder I didn't die. And when I got in, they said, I heard 2 of the nurses, a shift change was going on. They said, what's he in for? And I heard one of them say, it's another OxyContin. We're just starting to get those in. She went, really? What's that withdrawal like? She said, 7 days of hell, just like heroin. And when I heard that, I went, heroin?
It had to snap you into a whole...
OxyContin, nobody even put that together yet,
right.
That's what this is. And so when I got off of that, I was really relieved, because the drug is too good. It's too good for appendicitis. Come on. But when I got off of that, I never went back on. 6 months later, I had a wrist surgery to have a screw taken out of my wrist. Should have told the doctor, I don't need pain medicine. Didn't tell the doctor. I had this pain in my stomach that I felt like was withdrawal for the last 6 months. I took the Vicodin, went away. I'm back on the Vicodin, and that kind of went on. I'm in and out of rehab 3 times. The last time, finally, when I got in trouble here, arrested in Scottsdale for shoplifting.
Yeah, September 2000.
Oh, thanks for the date.
14.
Thanks for the date, K-Ray. No, when I say it, each time I would just want to cry. I just want to bawl.
Sure.
I did that.
Do you remember that day? I mean, do you like any kind of...
to be honest, I think there were multiple days.
Yeah.
So I don't. I mean,
to be able to
yeah,
crystallize the one.
I just know I been through a divorce. I'm a lifelong horse player, gambler. And I mean, big money. And you know, that for some time that bled over into Vegas and blackjack. And so I was doing everything running from myself, you know,
Right.
whether it was, you know, playing golf for every day, for being gone every day for a month or whatever. I just would trade things, trade
Right.
addictions.
Yeah.
So at that point, I was arrested. I'm in trouble. I'm at rock bottom. And Buddy says, listen, man, you really need to go back to rehab. And I needed to go for myself. I also needed to go legally. I needed, you know, I had felonies. And
Right.
so I go to rehab, and I'm in rehab. I go in Kentucky, and it was the best thing for me. And I was there 30 days, and I'll never forget Rick Patino, one of my good friends. Rick came to see me, and Rick's been through his share of stuff. Rick came to see me. I was fresh out of detox, and I was just a crying, blubbering mess. And I'm just telling him I'm toxic. Nobody's ever going to want to talk to me or, you know, anything. And he told me, he said, Rex, look at me. He said, look, you're going to eat a lot of shit for a while. He said, and initially that shit's going to be like the size of a beach ball. He said, and if you keep doing the next right thing, that ball of shit is going to be the size of a basketball next, and then a volleyball, and then a softball, and then a baseball, and then a ping pong ball, and then a marble, and then a pebble, to where when people see you, that won't be the first thing they think of. And I didn't believe it for a fucking second. A pity party, all of that. And
all the natural.
Slowly but surely, he's right. John Lucas came to see me and said, Rex, you need to come stay with me. I'd sent players to John over the years, and you need to come stay with me after you leave here. And I said, for how long? My daughters are here. I want to get back. You know, he said, long as you need to be.
Right.
I was there for like 3 months, living in like a clean living house with other people, learning how to live again, to learn the value of a dollar, which I may have never known. How to fend for myself, how to live without every time something goes wrong. And that's the hardest part, because that's, you know, you're self-medicating. And once you learn to do that, it's tough to unlearn.
Well, and you know, you're dealing with it, but I'm sure as a father,
oh man,
you know, you're also dealing with
the guilt and shame and all of it. Yeah. Zeke, my son, came and picked me up from jail downtown. And I had been in jail for a day, which meant I hadn't had the medicine that's in my wallet all with me all the time for a day. And also somehow I'm rationalizing that I'm taking this medicine for arthritis and
for good reasons.
Yeah. So it was just, and Zeke came to it's just one of the worst thoughts, because Zeke came to pick me up, and at the time he'd have been 20, 22. And he gets out of the car and comes to hug me, and he's bawling, crying. And I have nothing for him. I got nothing.
Yeah.
I can't cry. I need to be consoling him, and I got nothing for him. And, you know, I get back home, take my medicine. Of course, I try to console him then, but it's past the point. I'm just lost, and I need to go away. And I got to rehab, and my roommate from college, one of them, Paul Andrews, is running the facility. And so he's got me in there. He's taking good care of me. But I remember getting to rehab. I checked into rehab. I never played basketball more than 190. I was 266 pounds and didn't care about anything.
Right.
I got into rehab. I sat there. I got in my room. There's no TV. It's old college dorm is what it looks like. No TV, no phone, no nothing. Got in the room and I went, this is where I need to be. I laid on the bed, and I'm broken, but I knew it had to start right there. And fortunately, this time around, I listened. I learned why I was doing these things, or tried to, and a lot of therapy and ongoing therapy for years after to this day. So that was kind of the beginning of digging out. And, I dug out a little bit. I started getting some opportunities here and there to do some radio, TV stuff, basketball stuff. And, slowly but surely started picking up the pieces.
Before we get out of here, I have to ask, blocker charge.
Yeah.
It mushroomed into this phenomenon. And I know that people had called you an influencer, and you kind of shrugged and laughed, said, influencer.
Right.
Are you kidding me? But how blocker charge became this platform of positivity, of other people, because you were very candid and raw, and kind of sharing why you started doing the blocker charge, because idle minds, can
no question
create bad results.
Yeah.
And how you were able to turn that into this message of positivity. And I came across this quote: if you want to lift yourself up, lift up someone else, from Booker T. Washington.
Yeah.
And it felt like in a roundabout way, that's what you were doing for other people.
That's really nice. But also, I remember being around my buddies. People would come up to me in public, be like, "The Twitter guy, and you're so positive." And I'm not. I'm trying to fool myself every day. There's a lot of terrible shit out there. But what I started understanding was that if I put that stuff out, if I found a good video of somebody doing something nice for someone else, people loved that stuff. And I'm trying to fool myself through the day, trying to not look at all the bad shit out there. And if you can take your mind off of it for just a minute, and then on top of that, you feel like, okay, well, you're giving some other people, maybe they're having a tough day, because you know what it's like to have a tough day, even when things are going well. It just felt like, I don't know, it felt like it was something nice. And it was something that helped me get through the day. And if it was helping other people, then that's a good byproduct. Yeah.
Jumping back real quickly, your years here with the Suns, you forged a quick relationship with the fans, and it felt like, and maybe it's just me trying to convince myself because of our friendship, but working back then, but it felt like there at the end of your career that it was a time that you had real joy in playing the game again.
Oh yeah. No question.
You brought such joy to the Suns fans with that playoff series against Seattle. And I know to this day you walk through the arena.
Yeah.
And longtime Suns fans remember that.
No question. I'm so fortunate. And I guess a little breaking news. I'm back with the Suns doing some personnel stuff. Suns
makes us all very
Suns
happy, by
basketball ambassador and pro personnel analyst. So I'm not a decision maker. I'm just doing what I like to do, and feel very fortunate. And I believe this means that I've worked for every owner for the Phoenix Suns. Is that right?
That would be correct.
That would be correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm thrilled. Matt Ishby has been great. James Jones and Josh Bartlesine, they're doing amazing stuff with the Suns. I'm just thrilled to be a very small part of it. And I know that I think the ambassador thing is pretty cool, because I was once the youngest player in the league, and I've been through a lot basketball wise. And if our players are around and they see me and they have any sort of question about anything, that's what I'm here for. And if I'm here to just be a cautionary tale, then that's what I'll be, because these guys need it. And I don't want, if I can help anybody avoid some of the stuff that I've hit, then I need to be doing that.
Right.
Yeah.
that iconic playoff shot, 4.3 seconds left against the Sonics, is
Yeah.
one that will forever be burned in my memory banks and those of the Suns. But I think, as you've heard here today, with everything that Rex has shared with us, a lot more than that. Before we go,
Yeah.
one of the things that I like to do here on the show is we have a segment called Pay It Forward.
Okay.
And it's an opportunity for our guests to share charities, causes, initiatives that are important to them so that we, our viewing and listening audience, can maybe find out and identify, could be something that's important to them as well. So what are the causes, charities, initiatives out there that you'd like to promote?
Man, I've got a soft spot for my I'm going to brag on my daughters for a bit. So my oldest daughter, Kaylee, she got her master's in autism disorders, and she's got her own program at a school here locally. My ex-wife teaches there as well, but they're educators, and we actually know many people who are on the spectrum, and it was not something when I was a kid. All these, and I was a bouncing all over the walls kid, and for a lot of us, they just we were sort of labeled bad kids,
right?
And they didn't really understand. And I just think about so many of the classmates that I had that had some social issues and stuff that we weren't sensitive enough with. And I think now, as we're getting to this age of where it's okay to discuss mental health and depression, and I don't feel right, and articulating those things out loud,
right?
I just think being more sensitive to people's struggles. You never, even if I do it. I generalize a lot. Oh, those people, and no, not those people.
We're all guilty of it.
You never know what another person, why they believe or think the way they do, until you sit and talk to that person. And I think that's what we're kind of losing these days. So the more conversation we can have, open and honest, without judging one another, I think is the best for all of us. And I just think we're living in a pretty toxic time where it's okay to be mean and nasty and say things to get a reaction, and that's no way to live.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I can't thank you enough for
man. Thanks for having me.
Sharing your time and the real raw background of
it's
Rick
not
Chapman.
Thank you. You'll notice I didn't put this down the second and really true. When I started coming out of rehab, and people started asking me to go speak, they had a ball on the stage, and I picked it up and I did this, and I started going places with the ball and carrying it while I talked and telling this story. And for whatever reason, it gives me comfort. I'm able to, I may have cried if I didn't have the ball, like for real.
Right.
So thanks for the ball.
That's what we're here for, man.
Thanks,
man. That is what Breakthrough Chronicles is all a part of. I couldn't think of a better guest for us to introduce Breakthrough Chronicles here as we forge a new alliance with the wonderful people here at PHNX. Can't thank them enough.
I've started seeing them online now. If I see them on Twitter, I know they're starting to do stuff.
They are blowing up.
Yes, they are.
Thank you to Jacob, Saul, the whole crew here. And thank you, my man.
You got it, bud.
Always
looking forward to this year.
Absolutely looking forward to it.
Go Suns.
You'll see lots more of this guy, and we look forward to seeing lots more of you here on Breakthrough Chronicles.
We all silly like the mayor.